Let's go to Georgia, where today a federal judge ruled that Georgia must redraw some of its congressional and state legislative districts. U.S. District Court Judge Steve Jones ruled that voting map violated the Voting Rights Act Section 2 and was racially discriminatory against minority voters in the state. In his more than 500-page opinion, Judge Jones gave the state until December 8th to draw new maps before he would appoint someone else to do it. Sounds very similar to Louisiana. Sounds similar to Alabama and Florida. And we could keep going. Cliff Albright, co-founder of Black Voters Matter, joins me now. Cliff, you sent me a text when the ruling came down. Huge victory for you guys and your lawyers. And again, what people need to understand, this is the Republican Party despising black people. This is not just Georgia. This is state after state after state where the Republican Party is deliberately trying to reduce black power, minority power.
Exactly. I mean, they're trying to reduce our power, which impacts our communities. But, you know, it's not just our communities, because their attack on our communities, on our districts in these states, and you named several of them, right? Alabama, Louisiana, just talking about North Carolina, here in Georgia, Florida, arguably, not even arguably, factually, control of Congress right now hinged on the fact that you had all these districts impacted by white supremacy and voter suppression and racial gerrymandering. Like there's no doubt about it. We'd be dealing with a different Congress right now. We wouldn't have been sitting watching this farce that they've been doing for the past couple of weeks, where they don't even have a Speaker of the House. We'd be able to take action on a range of issues, including issues that concern our community. So what's happening with this racial gerrymandering impacts us most harshly, but it really impacts the entire country, and they know that, right? That's part of what the purpose is. They are using us and our communities and our districts as pawns in order to maintain white supremacy and their control of power.
This is what, again, by them controlling the legislature, having supermajorities, and so by the Democrats not even controlling either house, they can do what they want. If you had split governance, let's say Republicans control the Senate and the governor's mansion, but Democrats control the House, and all of a sudden you don't have that. So for instance, in Virginia, right now, Dems control the state Senate, Republicans control the House, they have the governor's mansion. If black folks turn out and others turn out and flip 3 seats in Virginia in a few weeks, then Virginia gets a black Speaker of the House, and now all of a sudden Republicans can't simply run the table.
That's exactly right. You know, we focus a lot on the congressional redistricting, right, and the congressional representation. But as you just pointed out, what happens in these states, in these state legislatures, is absolutely critical. I mean, at the end of the day, it's those state legislators that, in fact, drawing the maps that impact both Congress as well as the state legislatures. And whether or not there's these trifectas where the other side controls all three, the governor's mansion and both houses, both chambers of the legislature, or whether you have this mixed government that you were talking about, that means something, right? It means something for being able to block the worst of the legislation. Even in situations where maybe they control both of the chambers of the legislature, but you're able to capture the governor's mansion. That's the battle that's going on right now in Mississippi, where they have supermajorities in the legislature. But if you at least had the governor's mansion, then that governor could actually block the worst things that they're trying to do, and maybe even slide through some good stuff. And so we've got to recognize that what happens at all of these levels of governance, right? Federal, state, and local, and then within those levels of governance, what happens at the different branches of government, the executive as well as the legislature and the courts, because keep in mind, as y'all were just talking about, it's the control of the North Carolina Supreme Court, which switched recently, that has even enabled them to go back and undo previous decisions and open up the door for this racial gerrymandering. So we have got to be committed and focused on and raising awareness about all three of the branches about all levels of government, federal on down to municipal. That's the call that we have, right? That's the responsibility that we carry. We can't just pick and choose, like, I only care about top of the ticket, I only care about this. We've got to be engaged up and down about all the levels of governance, all three branches, in order to be able to control our political destinies and control all these issues that impact our jobs, our income, our health care, our education, and all of that. It depends on all of these levels of governance.
And again, fighting the courts is one thing, but then folks then turning around and showing up is another. We're going to talk about that when we discuss Mississippi up next. But here's a perfect example. Go to my iPad, Anthony. And so this here is the breakdown of voters in North Carolina. Okay, and so this is broken down, folks. By so you see, I'm gonna go. Let me see over here. Let me see. Let me do this here. All right, I'm gonna go to. So as you see here, here's a perfect example. So these are all the counties. So on the far right, you see what the totals are. So you see 112,000 in, these are alphabetical order. Then you see 23,000 there, black voters. And you go to the next, let's say you go to the next large one, 16,081 total people. Black people make up 6,000 people in that county. Let's see here. If you go down to, another one, 152,000, you see right at the top, black people are 30,000 alone there. Then if you go down here to, let's see, this one county that's 210,000, African Americans are 84,000 in that particular county. You go to this one right here where we're 232,000 total people in that county. Black people are 72,000 people in that county. The reason I'm saying that, and we're going to discuss this with Mississippi next, because Cliff, we're talking about turnout. Too many organizations and entities are just trying to be so broad. I keep saying, no, you got to go down so granular down to the precinct and literally say, okay, in this precinct, there's 700 eligible voters. They're on the rolls. In the last election, 80 turned out. So that means if you're an organization, we need to be knocking on those doors to go after the 680 people who did not vote. And so then you also have the racial data. And so when I think back to Mississippi in 2000, when Cindy Hyde-Smith ran in a special election against Mike Espy, he lost by 65,000 votes. There are more than 100,000 black people who didn't even vote in the election. So Espy actually could have won. So we ain't talking about just even poor white folks. We're talking about black folks as well. We have to understand that when we sit at home, when we check out of elections, we literally are letting those who are oppressing us be in control.
That's right, and we've got to, like you said, we got to know that data. We got to get that granular. I was looking at the data just the other night, and there's enough. Going back to that race you just mentioned in 2018 with Espy, the difference. No, I'm sorry, 2019, which was their governor's race. The difference between that governor's race was about 50,000 votes, right? I was looking at some numbers just in like maybe 29 or 30 counties where we do a lot of work, where we got local partners, not even counting Jackson and Hinds County, right? Not even counting Jackson. There's enough black folks. If we increase turnout, just by like 10%, if we get to the SB levels, right, and maybe a little bit more, but if we get to the SB levels, just in those 29 predominantly rural counties, that can be the difference, right?
It's right here. It's right here. These are the results in 2019. Tate Reeves won with 449,746 votes. Jim Hood got 402,000. That's literally a difference of 47,700 votes.
That's right. That's exactly right. And so what we're looking at is forgetting what it is that white folks are going to do, right? And I happen to believe that there's going to be a slightly larger percentage of them that actually vote for things like healthcare and entering the grocery tax and some other stuff. But forgetting what they did just in our communities, right? Just in our counties. And again, not even just Jackson. Everybody and their mama going to be talking about Jackson. Everybody and their mama going to be talking about Hinds County, and for good reason, right? It's the capital. It's important. There's a lot of people there. But what we fail to recognize is there's about out of the 770,000 registered black voters in Mississippi, the vast majority of those are outside of Hinds County. When you ignore the Delta it's like you're ignoring a city and a county, the
Right.
signs of Jackson and Hines. That's the power that's in those counties collectively. But when you only look at them as, oh, well, there's only 10,000 there, there's only 9,000, then it causes you to lose sight of the big picture. We've got to engage
Yep.
in those counties. We got a door knock, we got a phone call, we got a text. We can't just be about, just like in Georgia, you can't win Georgia just by focusing on Atlanta.
Right.
Atlanta's important, but if you do that, that is a losing strategy.
Yep, absolutely. And so, folks, the win today, is going to get appealed in Georgia. But again, the battles are happening in the courts. We've got to back up the wins in the courts with the wins at the ballot box.